Prologue. DM Bellator reflects on the pivotal moment when their mother disappeared on a hot afternoon. They speculate that, had they acted differently, stepping into the alley to hear the words of a scarred stranger or convincing their mother to leave town earlier, tragedy might have been avoided. The mother's disappearance triggered a series of events with far-reaching consequences that no one, not even the gods, could have anticipated. This incident marks the beginning of DM Bellator's story, setting the stage for the unfolding chain of events tied to secrets buried in Emerian soil and the unexpected outcomes that follow. In Chapter 1, DM Bellator finishes a difficult healer's shift in Mortal City, haunted by a young patient's death. As Forging Day begins under an ominous blood sun, she discusses the superstition with Mora, her mentor, before walking home through dangerous streets filled with drunken revelers. Two men corner her in an alley, accusing her of being descended because of her pale eyes. Forced to fight back, she disarms them and flees into the slums of Paradise Row. There, DM discovers her mother secretly meeting a scarred, descended man named Aurelie, overhearing talk of extortion and danger before they vanish. An eerie old woman confronts DM, revealing knowledge of her hidden heritage and her use of flame root powder to conceal her identity, calling her Daughter of the Forgotten. When DM resists, the woman seizes control of her body, warns of an ancient prophecy, and vanishes. That night, DM's mother never returns home. In Chapter 2, 6 months after her mother's disappearance, DM Bellator begins her day under the watchful eye of her father, the former commander, who discovers she has been inconsistent with her flame root powder, a medicine that prevents visions caused by an inherited illness. Though frustrated with his reprimand, DM reconciles with him and leaves home with her brother Teller. On their walk, they discuss their mother's continued absence, the mysterious descended man she was seen with, and the ongoing search for answers. DM reflects on the changes in herself since stopping the powder, noticing her anger and heightened awareness of injustice. The siblings also talk about Teller's schooling at the Descendant Academy, and the politics surrounding the ailing King Ulthar, whose succession is uncertain and hotly debated among the Descended. They learn that Prince Luther, the king's nephew, is the current favorite for the crown. DM's companion Henry joins them, and together they navigate the city while teasing about school, family, and royal affairs. In Chapter 3, 6 months after her mother's disappearance, DM prepares for her day under the watchful eye of her father, the former commander, while reflecting on her brother Teller's admission to the Descendant Academy. Teller's education offers opportunity, but comes with strict rules forbidding mortals and descended from intermarrying, preventing any romantic entanglements. DM walks with Henri, who encourages her to accompany him to Fortos the next day, both to relax and potentially investigate her mother's disappearance through her former Emerian army colleagues. They discuss the crown's succession, King Ulthar's declining health, and the secrecy surrounding descended magic. DM visits the Healer's Center, working with Mora to care for mortal patients while reminiscing about her mother's guidance and the 6 months of silence since she vanished. Mora teases DM about Henri, approving a short trip while ensuring precautions are taken. The chapter concludes as a young, descended with striking blue eyes suddenly bursts into the center, signaling a potentially urgent or dangerous situation. In Chapter 4, a distressed descended boy, Elric, arrives at the Healer's Center seeking Aurelie Bellator, reporting a palace accident where 3 children were injured by a collapsed stone roof. DM, Mara, and trainee Lana quickly gathers medical supplies and follow Elric, who guides them through a hidden forest shortcut to the palace. Elric admits the accident was his fault, caused by showing off his magic to the children. At the palace, they navigate a glass-walled sunroom strewn with rubble and begin treating the injured. DM attends to Princess Lily, the oldest child with a broken arm and head wound, administering silverworm medicine and setting the bone while a protective descended man with olive skin, blue-gray eyes, and a scar watches closely. DM recognizes him as the same. Descended she had seen with her